All right, we are here today with our very, very special guest, very friend of the show, very friend of ours in real life, Joe Giordano, the patron saint of photography in Baltimore. Say hello, Joe.
Hi. Just full disclosure, I don't really like you guys or the
Oh,
show. I'm just here for the book talk.
all
Is
the
that
way,
right? My agent said
already
just to
with a
get on
hurt
the
feeling.
show. My agent said just to come on the show,
Okay,
right?
your agent.
I
You're
love you
fulfilling
guys.
a contractual obligation.
I love you guys.
We are here to talk about your book, We Used to Live at Night. Over 300 pages of nightlife photography, all in black and white, and a couple of essays, too, that I read at least one or two of them, and I loved them. So we will discuss all of that. But first, we would be idiots if we did not have the man who documented, well, not one of many men and women and non-binary people. That
Just
was,
say photographers.
yeah, photographers. There you go.
There you go.
That witnessed the events of January 6, 2021 in real time. So we'll spend a beat on that, and then we will get to this glorious photography that we're all featuring as our virtual backgrounds. Joe, why did you do that to yourself?
Um, well, I put the wolf mask on because I'm a kind of a furry. No, I'm just no. Wait. What are we talking about? You went from we talking about the
We're talking about the
January.
Capitol. Tell us about last month. Tell us what it was like to be in the middle of like
1 month ago today, as we record.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So 1 month ago, again, I was in line at Giant,
Right.
and it was nuts. People,
Yeah.
there was a run on milk, crazy.
You were trying to
No,
get 5
the-
pounds
the
of boar's
Capitol-
head turkey.
That's right. That's right. Bourbon turkey. Don't knock that. Boris said bourbon turkey.
So good.
No, the Capitol was very is a very strange slash. Okay, so let's begin at the beginning. I was there with Ron Cassie, who's a writer for Baltimore Magazine.
Mhm.
We were doing a just a piece on the rally, but we were over at Black Lives Matter Plaza. We were waiting for some Baltimore activists to get there to interview them. And it's the Baltimore angle, and I had been over to the 1984, to the dictator rally with his face on all the screens.
Okay.
There was thousands of people, very little, if any, masks. I mean, they're very anti-mask. I was telling Evan before the show started, it's the first time during COVID, and I've covered a lot of stuff during COVID. I've been very fortunate, knock on wood, to have worked throughout the pandemic. This was the first time I've actually stopped and been like, shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with no masks.
Very
here
dicey.
breathing. Yeah, it was very dicey. So then there's this massive, like, kind of Trump. He left the stage, and there's this massive kind of Trump parade went by, and we asked, like, where are you guys headed? And they're like, we're going to the Capitol. So we decided, well, let's head down there. And I got a text from my wife. Holy shit, people are trying to break into the Capitol. So Ron, to his credit, he used to be a bike messenger in DC. He's like, I'm parked right here. Let's go.
Oh, wow.
So he's like weaving through back alleys and streets and got to the Capitol in like 2 minutes from Black
Cool.
Lives Matter Plaza. Which, if you just for listeners, if you've never been to DC, that's about the size of 3 football fields, maybe. It's at the other end of the mall, right? It's behind the White House at the other end of the mall, and the Capitol is obviously the other end of the mall. So that's like 2 football fields. But to get there, it would have taken like a half hour, 40 minutes to walk, right? But
Right.
Ron got us there pretty quickly in like 5 minutes.
Impressive.
Yeah, so we got there, and it was just this. It was something out of like Olympus Has Fallen, right? Like there were all these, all these people scaling that. You saw, I got pictures of scaling that wall when there was literally a ramp right next to the
Right.
wall. They could have just walked up.
I was going to say, how much of this do you think this was just them enacting some fantasy of scaling the wall of the Capitol, right? Like, I have this grappling hook. I've always wanted to use it to take down the government.
100%.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I got to agree because everything I've seen, people thought they were going to go, they were going to do this, they were going to go home. It's like old timers baseball fantasy camp. They thought they were going to fantasy camp,
Right.
An insurrection.
Right.
Well, here, I mean, so then we got caught up, kind of like that scene in Last Crusade, right, where I was trying to leave, and then this wave of like Proud Boy Oathkeeper assholes pushed us kind of up these steps and like right to the door of the Capitol. Like I've got pictures of the cops pointing guns out of the door, like close ups.
It's fucking crazy.
And that was a question I was going to ask you. Do you have, at any point in time, do you like pull out your like fedora with your press pass in it and be like, it's me, I'm the press? Like, who do you let know that you're
It probably would have killed him.
Yeah. Well, you know, people, because this is a couple of times I've talked about this like publicly, and it's like, how do you do it? Well, look at the way I look. I really don't have any problems blending in with Trump supporters.
Got it.
You know, like, yeah, OAN, yeah, right.
I love Newsmax.
But what do you say to the police? Like, hey, I'm just like, this is me. I'm working. Like, how do you separate yourself? Like,
oh no. So I mean, it's a good question. So I shoot for a wire service that's based in London and Hong Kong called SOPA Images. So I have an official press badge from them that I wear on my lanyard. I don't, you know, I'm not knocking any journalist that's out there, but I don't like to advertise myself as press. I know that a lot of photographers that are under contract from say the Post and the Times, they have to by law for insurance, because if they get hurt, then the insurance company's like, well, do they have identifying mark? You know what I mean? There's so many ways that they won't have to pay, but so insurance companies make you wear the helmet and the Kevlar, which I've never worn, right? Even during the uprising, you know, I feel better, and actually I feel safer to being able to get in and out of places without wearing all that gear, right?
Guerrilla photographer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and a lot of these photographers were, you know, I was on a group, I was on a WhatsApp group I was honored to be on there. I was on there with some like really big names in photojournalism on this private group that were like, hey.
Annie Leibovitz.
What's that?
Annie Leibovitz.
Yeah, higher, actually.
Ooh.
And Geddes.
More important. Yes, Ann Geddes was there. Ann Geddes was there.
There's a lot of talk about taking photos of babies in almond shells.
Yes. Make America gag again, right? Like, yeah, so, or gurgle again, maybe. No, but they were talking about like, what are you going to wear, and can you get in with this, and all that, and a lot of them have been to war zones, and this is how they think, you know. This was like being in a war zone. I mean, but I didn't advertise. You know, I have my mask on the whole time, right? And then I got a face full of pepper spray, so that scrubbed my mask of any kind of COVID worry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
sanitizing effect.
Yes, my face is on fire, and this mask is. Luckily, though, we had lunch before this all kicked off, and I had a bottle of water with me, so I was able to rinse my eyes out, because there's not exactly street medics running around to help Nazis out. So
Right.
We didn't have a lot of that. I think the weirdest thing that I took away with this is that this is the first time that I really experienced mob mentality, and I don't mean that in a protest way, right? I mean that there were people there, like there were women with like yoga pants and baseball hats, and you would see them in White Marsh, like beating on the doors of the Capitol and forcing their way in. Like these weren't like Oathkeeper, you know, rack wearing AR-15 guy. Like these were like people that you would see in White Marsh.
Yeah,
you know?
it's very fascinating.
Going nuts.
Yeah,
I really hope somebody writes a book, like a psychological book about it, because
I've already read a few of the articles describing now the like influencer culture that is sort of like dipping into QAnon and getting really activated and weird and shit.
Yeah.
I follow a couple pairs of walking tits that are just like also talking about like, you know, child, you know, abductions and flat Earth theory and stolen elections and Dominion voting machines. It's wild.
Well, the major the through line that I've noticed that a lot of these articles tend to focus on is that the major thing that these people focus on is their personal freedoms and their liberties. And one of the articles that I read made the notation that it's like, well, these are white people that have just for the first time been told, you can't do this, sit down, shut up. And
that's pretty much it. I mean, it's, you know, it's a big stew pot, right? Like I was on another photojournalism podcast about this, and, you know, a lot of this goes back to Ruby Ridge, and those in your
Sure,
40s.
sure.
Sure.
You know, this goes back to the Ammon Bundys. You know, the get off our land, fuck the federal government. Then you have the people that are blind Trump cultists, right, who think he won this election, and then you have the people that were just just caught up in this thing. I mean, it really, I read this great story where Robert Capa, the famous photojournalist, before he left Hungary, there was a rally that he went to, and him and his friend, as a joke, started chanting "canned beans," and all of a sudden, the people started chanting "canned beans." And I always remember that story in his biography, because that's what it was. Like, some of this was just these people that were caught up in this and didn't fear any consequences because they were white. They just, I mean, this was the volcano of white privilege just erupting and spilling over. It really was. I mean, they turned on the cops. They turned on the police. Like, they were yelling, "Hands up, don't shoot." A whole crowd of beardy white people yelling, "Hands up, don't shoot." Like, it's like I'm on like Earth 2.
I was going
like,
to say,
yeah.
it's truly a multiverse situation in which you've got the people that are Blue Lives Matter, like, fucking up police and trying to kill them with Confederate flags. We've
And then
truly
yelling like when they get stopped, yelling like we're on your side or whatever.
Right.
Like it just
yeah,
Joe, I like, Evan said, we're friends. I follow you on Facebook. I see you on Instagram. I think you really you specifically took this really personally. You were very angry about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, because you guys, I was in the Army. I was in military police, honorable discharge. Did my time, and my dad and I, my dad's a retired city cop. And we talked about this, and the Confederate flag in the Capitol was bad enough, right? And that's a shameful part of American history, right? But it's shameful American history. But a neo-Nazi flag in the Capitol, fuck that, man. That's like Cobra, Like, I'm not having that, Like, I'm not, I'm not having the Confederate flag, but I'm not having the neo-Nazi flag either. Like, very close to the World War II memorial, quite frankly.
It really pisses me off now, and we're a month out from that whole event, that the whitewashing of the whole thing, like, it is so full-blown right now. Like, we aren't talking about in the media and in Congress, like, there were neo-Nazis storming the Capitol looking for Mike Pence to hang him.
Yeah. Well, they don't, I mean, again, the Trump bubble, the Fox News bubble, they went into overdrive. They don't want to lose actually, they came in third place. I don't know if you saw that, for the first time in 20 years, behind CNN and MSNBC, Fox.
Yeah.
So and they're competing against the one American Nazi network and fucking news, like they're but yeah, but Brian, like, I took it personally. I mean, and also, quite frankly, I'm a nerd, man. I was raised on Indiana Jones and Captain America. You binarily hate Nazis, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Listen,
like when you're
I'm
up
a Jewish nerd. You don't have to sell me on that idea.
I mean, exactly. But there were, like, one of the strangest things I saw was the other nations' flags. Like, there was an Israeli flag, and there was an Indian flag, and there was, like, South Korean flags, and there was a Canadian flag, and it was like, I mean, that part it's like ask me to describe infinity. I can't. I don't know why. I don't.
What is it?
I don't get that. I don't get it. I mean, I understand. Like the hardcore, Israeli Trump bond, right? The strongman type thing. But I don't get, like, being up there with the Kekistan assholes when they're fucking neo-Nazi flags. Like, that I just don't. I mean, I wanted to tell these people were the first ones that are going to yank that yarmulke off your head if you step out of line.
Absolutely.
Where are you with these assholes?
It is a very bizarre, strange bedfellow situation. The folks that will immediately, shit all over Ilhan Omar for accidentally making some sort of anti-Semitic statement, but then when an elected member of Congress does it all the time, they're kind of like, what? Come on.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're the party of hypocrisy, right? Like they are. I mean, we can talk about that all day, but
Yeah, we don't have time for
but
that.
as far as like, I mean, but I will say though, kind of in closing on the Capitol thing, if you guys wanted to move on, but
Sure.
I don't think this is going to happen again.
Well, now we've got
I-
permanent fencing around the Capitol building, so that'll
Well, I
make
mean,
it.
that's probably going to come down. No, but I don't think. I think this was a rude awakening for all. Like, I don't think Pop Pop and Meemaw want to get dragged at a Cracker Barrel on like a federal beef, right? Like, so
I don't know, dude. Like, I've got some relatives who are like hardcore Trump supporters, and so every once in a while I'll check in, see what they're saying. During that day, I checked in multiple times. They're like, "Yeah, like I want to be there right now. Like I want to be involved in this." And like, what are you talking about? Like, I just don't. I don't get it.
It's all cosplay.
Some people
like,
are just.
they're all just doing D&D, their own.
Hey, don't drag down D&D into this.
Sorry. It's all just pretend bullshit. And yes, all right. So we've done 15 minutes on this topic, and now we get to go and shift gears to a much more joyous topic, which is nightlife in Baltimore. Talking about Joe's new book. Is this your first book, Joe?
Yes, this is my first book.
Great topic for a book. I mean, nightlife in general in any city is a fascinating topic, but Baltimore certainly has its gritty, dirty, gross history, which was kind of the reason I moved here in the first place. And I do feel like it is slowly being sanitized in a lot of ways, but these pictures brought me back in a way that I can't really, give words to. Like the picture of the lady, the owner of bar in Fells Point from 1995. I was like, oh my god, I can't imagine. I mean, well, first of all, I worked in Fells Point in the 90s when it was still dirty AF, and which in a lot of ways it still is. But nowadays, I would categorize it as just an offshoot of Harbor East and or a displaced portion of Georgetown. But yeah, these photos are crazy. They're great. So why don't we? I don't know, man. Like,
I think they're gonna rename it Atlas Wharf.
yeah. Oh God.
Tell us about the photos. Tell us like the breadth of them.
Yeah.
Tell us where they're from.
The broad
us about the book.
strokes.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, when I first started taking photos, like just out of school, I've always wanted to do a nightlife book. There's a book called Paris by Night by a very famous photographer named Brassai, Brassai. And there's been one for London by a photographer named Bill Brand. These are in the 30s. And Baltimore's really never had a nightlife, kind of a nightlife book like one of the bigger cities have had. New York's had one. New York's had a couple, obviously, it's New York. But Baltimore's never really had one. So, I started with film. I started with my film camera, Minolta X700 and Ilford 3200 and Kodak T-Max 3200. So I didn't have to use a flash for a lot of the film ones. They're also in the book. And then, over the summer during COVID, when nobody was going out, I was just going through my archive and I was just like, I'm just going to post these on Instagram because it's like August and there's literally nothing to do. Like, even non-COVID, freelance jobs kind of dry up for August, so there was nothing to do. So I just started putting these up, and Deborah Shera from the Culture Crush in New York saw them, and we had this discussion. Then they started a publishing house called Culture Crush Editions, and she asked, we talked about publishing them as a book, as a zine first. Ooh. And then there were so many pictures. Yeah, well, it blew up to a 300-page book. So
I was gonna say when I saw that it was 315 pages or whatever, I was like, holy shit, this is a lot of content.
Yeah. It's full bleed. Most of the pictures are full bleed. But yeah, so this publisher was interested in it, and we would be going back and forth. She edited. She did all the hard edits. I just kept sending pictures, and she did all the hard edits on it. And I'm pretty proud. It didn't need to be kickstarted, and it wasn't a self-published book. So because of that, that's going to allow me to donate to Baltimore Safe Streets. Oh. Whatever I get out of it is going to Baltimore Safe Streets. There are some crime scene photos in there, which I was apprehensive about putting in the book, but after talking to some photojournalists and some people that I respect their opinions. Um, they were like, it needs to be in there. It needs to be, it's part of the city's night tapestry, quite frankly.
Yeah,
True.
I was just thinking. I mean, isn't that part of like, going out? Like, I think about like where I used to go out, and I didn't get to some of the, let's say, the grimier aspects of Baltimore until, I mean, definitely in like my early 30s.
Yeah.
I was definitely a Federal Hill, Fells Point kid, but like just to think about like you hear sirens, especially once I started going out up around North Avenue, like
Right.
that's a place where that's that can be rough. That's a place where you're going to hear sirens. So you might hear a shot ring out.
I was going to say, talk about a world apart. North Avenue, the Charles Theater, when it was still a single screen in the 90s, I would go there to watch art films, basically. And yeah, I was frightened of that. Yes, The Pillow Book was a film I saw. Look
Yes.
it up. But yeah, like now it's like semi-vibrant, but still very much on the threshold of gross. Um, and I think it's a delicate balance, like keeping places like that kind of in that flux, that like not quite gentrified, but still interesting to see. Like walking into the depot and being like, yeah, this place is still disgusting.
Well, this seems like a good place to talk about Joe's essay.
Right.
I used to hate the Crown.
No, that's
Tell us
not
a
my.
little bit.
Okay, that's not my essay.
Ah,
That's DDM, the musician. That's his essay.
okay.
Mine is Baltimore is in a permanent state of 3 a.m. That was the title that Deb pulled of mine. Before we get to the essays, though, I do want to say this about the crime scenes. Deborah, my editor, was really genius in her sequencing. The crime scenes aren't lumped together. When I asked her about should we pull them, the addition, I thought her reasoning that this is what goes on outside of the clubs in the city when you're partying and drinking. This is real going on outside of it's a very grounding thing. I just thought that was very genius of her to explain that design concept
Yeah.
where, well, if you're partying, then you have a crime scene. It's to kind of like bring you back and really sober you up to what's going on in the city. And I was really careful with my crime scene. I don't want to be exploitive. The crime scene coverage was part of the nighttime stuff. It was also part of another series called Summer of the Gun for City Paper.
That's right.
But
Remember that.
yeah, I don't want to be exploitive with the crime scene photos. So the ones that I chose were chosen for shadow and light and things like that, and just to give you a feeling of kind of an ominous feeling overshadowing all this partying.
That's a good point. Like, yeah, meanwhile, while you're having a cigarette and drinking a Natty Boh at Mount Royal Tavern, literally three blocks away, there's a dead body lying, somewhere.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I talk about in my intro, kind of the white privilege of like being allowed to go out at night. Like, I go anywhere because I'm a white male, right? Like, if it were a black photographer, a woman photographer, it would the reception would be totally different than me just rolling through the city. Like I don't have any fear of getting arrested or assault whistled at. No, really. I mean,
I think about our friend Molotov
Maggie.
cocktail Maggie, yeah, and some of the stuff that she writes about going to crime scenes.
Exactly. So her experience being a woman is completely and utterly different than a white dude, rolling around the city at night. And if you look at the history of like, let's just say classical books. I mean, people have been shooting at night forever, but just the classical books on like Paris, London, L.A., Berlin, New York, whatever, they're all by men, right? They're all by white men, right? And that tells me, that it's a privilege to be walking around at night unaccosted, when Maggie, some of my black, like walking through Patterson Park at night is going to be a completely different. I posted this on my Instagram with that Columbus, the Columbus Center picture, that dark alley. I just walked in there on my tripod and took it. I didn't have to look over my shoulder for cops asking me like, "What are you doing here? Show us your ID," or some asshole hanging out in the shadows, right? I mean, it didn't occur to me as a white dude to think that. So
I think what distinguishes you versus Maggie most of all is that she does it in heels and often a dress.
you, I'm not comment.
I'm saying that
Backwards and in heels,
you
right?
can just throw on
Yeah,
some sweatpants. Yeah, if we
I'm
want
not
to get
touching.
into the gender discrepancies, like, I don't know, man. She's a interesting individual.
Yeah. No, she. I mean, she's got her style down.
Yeah.
And that's her thing. She's been doing it for a while.
I enjoy her pictures of buying vintage furniture and then taking them on the metro
Yeah.
to bring them
Yeah,
back to her house.
yeah, that's cool.
All right, well,
I think. Well, real quick, I think one of the things that I was struck by looking at your pictures, because they're all in black and white, they all just reminded me of those scenes in Homicide, to tie it into the crime scene. The opening credits to Homicide: Life on the Street, or those occasions where they would be out at night, and that one episode where they're on the night shift and it's really hot from the
Where
first
do you
season.
see that? Homicide doesn't stream anywhere. I can't. Nobody has it.
I have the first season on DVD. That's
Yeah,
all
I mean,
got.
I'd like to see it. I've never actually seen that. I was away for the first season, or the couple seasons. But anyway, sorry. Yeah, I'm like, I thought you were streaming it. I'm like, I'd love to be able to watch it, but it's not streaming anywhere.
No. I can just remember it, and I can just, I really got that kind of, they're both just these evocations, of Baltimore that just, I think I found them to be quite similar, and it really struck me.
so throughout the history, and I want to get to like some fun stuff. Joe, did you? So you say that you started taking these photos as soon as you got out of school, and this is what's the date on like the earliest photo you've got?
The earliest is probably like 91.
Oh wow.
That's probably the earliest. That there's no 91 ones in the book. The ones that when I started doing the nighttime stuff was like 95, 96.
So did you get any like small intestine, any Lith Hall, any I don't know, like places, honestly places that I went when I was a teen?
Well, I mean, there's Mobtown ballrooms in there.
Right.
There was quite a lot of Mobtown ballroom shots. We edited them down. I didn't. The thing was, I never when I went to Lith Hall, I never went. I never took my camera with me.
Oh.
To Lithuanian Hall. Because one, I didn't have a flash back then. Like I was going to Lith Hall when you could smoke in the basement. Right?
Oh sure,
like,
yeah.
There were so many venues that were left out and like edited. There's enough for 2 volumes of this. Like I'm not. I mean, there's enough good stuff where I would be satisfied with like volume 2. Like we left out a lot of like iconic like architecture stuff because again, they wanted this to flow straight through, right? So like nighttime architecture, so it kind of breaks it up, So I agree with like how I love the way that this thing just flows from beginning to end. But yeah, there's other stuff in there, but there's no like, I mean, some places, I just went to just drink, like I didn't go to take photos of. Strangely, it's weird. I thought I had pictures of the Mount Royal Tavern, but I think I have Eric, the bartender who passed away. His portrait's in the book. But I don't have good ones of. I have snapshotty ones of the tavern, but nothing that I would put into a formal piece.
Right.
Didn't lay on your back, take a picture of the ceiling or anything.
Exactly.
So what about the the mica culture, like H&H, floristry, copycat? Did you get it?
They're in there.
Okay,
they're in
good.
there.
Okay, because I didn't get a chance to like look at every single photo that was on that.
Yeah, there's definitely H&H's in there. I don't think the Soft House ones didn't make it in. The copycat ones from those 2 venues didn't make it in. Fifth Dimension's in there. There are quite a few from those, and I talk about this in the intro. Some text only parties.
Okay.
That are kind of it was kind of a cool culture for like a year, 2 years. Baltimore used to have these amazing speakeasies. There was one place called Club Smurf that had their own Smurf dollar bills. That was on Park Avenue, And this is also I used to co-publish an online magazine called Gutter, and
I
this was
remember it well.
Yes. Yeah. So you used to write for us, right?
I think I did like one or two things.
But yeah, but so there I would get these things, these text only parties where these DJs would be like, we're having like a party and give me your number. And back then you were like, no one's really tracking your number. So like, all right, I'll give this dude my number. And then like at like 2 a.m. you get a text with an address and you just go to the address. And I like Brent, my friend Brent was like kind of like my after hours buddy. And like we got this text, and it was to this warehouse behind Ravens Stadium, and it's like,
oh wow,
I love it. Yeah. So we get out, we park the car, there's nobody there, right? We get out, there's this big dude in the alley by this door, and Brent's like, man, this looks really sketch. Like, I don't know about this. And I was like, well, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna go up and talk to the guy. I got this text. This is the address. We, Google Maps pointed it out. It's the right address. Walked up to him. He's like, good evening, gentlemen. What's going on? And I was like, oh, hi. And I just showed him my phone. He's like, come right in, $15. The door opens. We walk through this curtain, paid our cover to this dude, walked through these other curtains, and it must have been 500 people in this warehouse, like,
wow,
partying. And it was like the bartender had a square, so like it wasn't even like he's like, yeah, you can use your card, just put it in the square.
Oh, so this is like recent history.
Yeah. That would have been like 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. So yeah, so these text only parties were pretty wild. They're in the book. There's about 4 or 5. There's a lot of wind up space, because they had like the break dancers that would come to 4 Hours of Funk.
Right.
In the back, like there and there. A lot of Scapescape and Radscape and all these
Scapescape was great.
All the scapes.
Yeah, well, that's what, like, so Transmodern Fest, that's what your background is.
Yeah.
Wolfpack is from Transmodern Festival.
I think you ran a feature in City Paper about Transmodern, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why I picked this one, because I remembered it specifically.
Yeah, that was so I was more interested in like those kind of things than actually like going into the sidebars in there. There's 2 sidebar photos in there. I mean, that's a great kind of underground, metal space. So yeah, I think it's a good mix. I think people will be. I couldn't get every single venue in there, but I think it's a good mix.
I think
I think I think my favorite, like, off the rails space, because like I said, I was a Fells Point, Federal Hill kid, is Bar right off the side of the square in Fells.
Yeah, that's Carol. Her portrait's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I mean, so like,
Carol is Bar. She passed away last year, actually, but yeah, that's from Bar.
It's amazing, because like even for someone like myself who has barely scratched the surface of this town, still can say, oh, that's the connection that I can have to this book. Yeah. I mean, that's fantastic.
No, Bar was no. I mean, that's good clout. Like it's good street. Like, Bar was, she had wine, red or white. That was it. He didn't take, quote, fucking credit cards, unquote. Yeah, she was like, I hate yuppies. There was a sign up that was like, if you're a yuppie, fuck off.
Yeah.
She was from Dundalk. She owned the bar. I think her daughter runs it now. They had, that picture of her came before they remodeled it, because they had some structural issues. They had to remodel the bar like 15
I remember the new bar that they put in. Yeah.
Right. That was new, but the picture of her, and again, like, that I wanted that portrait in there, because if you look at these traditionally, like, these books about nightlife, you get formal portraits of bartenders and things like that, so I really wanted that in there. I'm glad that it was chosen.
I discovered that place in college, and then did like 4 or 5 Halloweens in a row. We just wouldn't even bother going into like Turtle or any place. We just head straight there.
Straight to the bar. You can sit there, like, Natty Bows are like 50 cents or 75 cents.
It was great.
Probably a little more now, but yeah, that place is a gem, an absolute gem, amongst a sea of just kind of the portrait of gentrification.
All these pictures are your children. Do you have a favorite one in the book?
It's an excellent question. Well, the one I picked from my background is pretty recent, but if you see the whole picture of that, just the composition with going over that person's hands and taking you into the alley and just the absolute joy on everyone's face. That was from the Asian night market a few years
Right,
ago.
Graffiti Alley.
Graffiti Alley. But it's just jam packed with people, and like the DJ, Sean Smallwood's a DJ. You know, he's just like, his energy just lit up that crowd. You can see it in his face behind the. I mean, so that's probably. I mean, I really like. I love the Carol portrait because, and I love the other night woman in Fells. That's from like 95, 96. She's like Lady Godiva. She has a long hair. It's a vertical. That's in there. Because these are people that like lived at night, and that's why I really like those formal portraits.
Do you think it's gonna? So we've been doing this. They just opened up. Restaurants can now be open past 10 p.m. Do you think this shit's ever coming back? Do you think we're ever going to be? Do you think we're ever going to live at night again?
Not for a long time. I think there's going to be an initial rush, like kind of prohibition's over type thing.
Uh-huh.
But I teach high school, and those students want nothing to do with alcohol. They want nothing to do with going out. Like you're this COVID, you've missed a generation, almost two generations of people who would have went out to clubs and stuff. It's just going to be weird for them, and they're not going to want to do it. I mean, they might go to maybe a dance club, but then unless everyone has a vaccine, and like this thing's, it's not going to be eradicated, right? It's just going to be here. The vaccines really aren't like eradication of it.
Right.
I don't think so, bro. I've talked to two bartenders. I think in a few years there's going to be like a bar apocalypse where they're just not going to be able to stay open.
I think about it, and it's like, I don't know why, but very early on, I identified the Crown as the place that I'm like most looking forward to going to, if only because I felt like I just started going like when in the last like year and a half before COVID hit, and like I liked the young people, and I liked the music, and I enjoyed being able to go see just amateur rappers in one room, karaoke in another room, and I'm just like, it's never going to happen again. We're never going back to that.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's done its damage for a long time. I mean, think about this. A little off track, but think about this. Like, think of the little kids, right? The toddlers and the infants that don't get hugs from their friends. Like,
right.
They're growing up without. There's certain human things they're growing up without, and that's going to have a scar. I mean, again, I can't communicate to you like how much students they're like, ooh, alcohol, blah. It's weed, it's whatever, but it's not booze. Right? I think it's not beer and it's not booze.
But I think that was a trend that was already being established with all of the ugliness of alcohol. We can deal with it. We're hard as nails. But no, I think the younger generations are definitely had been prior to COVID like steering away very slowly from booze. The rise of the mocktail, the rise of like these bars that don't serve alcohol, but like you can go there and vape or vape your weed.
Right,
yeah, but still,
but compound that with people that aren't going to go out.
Right. Yes.
Right? They're not going to congregate. I mean, like I covered the protests against Chop Tank in August. July or something, right?
Oh God!
But I was in Fells, and I parked way down past former Dead End Saloon. So I had to walk down Thames Street, and like the one of the bars, I'm not going to name names, but one of the bars that had live music was like nothing was going on.
Oh
like,
sure, yeah.
It was like nothing, and people were like outdoor dining. Well, when you queue up at outdoor dining and you're shoulder to shoulder spitting on people and talking, that's not outdoor dining. And so the mayor said, I was 100% by what the mayor, what the mayor said. Like, it's just indoor dining outside.
Yeah, we had the mayor on a while ago, and I can't remember if we touched on these beats, but once he gave the executive order, the backlash on the Facebooks was gross, and we've talked about it on the podcast before. But yeah, it was like you guys were fucking up. Like you were making enclosures outside. It's not outdoor dining anymore. You're not doing it the right way.
Right. It's like, but yeah, to answer Brian's that long alpine windy answer, but like I don't think so. I think, I mean, I don't feel like going out. Like I've saved so much money
Yeah.
by not, like, my wife built we bought a stove, entire garden with no credit. Like we haven't. It's all from not going out.
I basically refurnished
It's
my
gonna be
house.
hard to convince people to do that. What's that?
I said I basically refurnished my house in the past year, and I'm still flush. Like it's insane.
I know, that's what I mean. It's going to be hard for people to go out and justify a $14, $15 cocktail. Like I have friends.
I would still like to go sit on a patio and listen to an old white man play guitar. I mean, that's something I would like to do.
Oh, well, there's plenty of Cialis commercials just for you.
Oh, excellent. Find me a matching bathtub.
Look, and by the way, on the Cialis commercials, I tweeted this out. I think AstraZeneca and these things, they're marketing this the wrong way. They got to have some guy in a pork pie with his gray buddies, like playing in a little band or fixing a car or sitting with his wife looking in a bathtub, like out over some ocean somewhere, and be like, live your life, get vaccinated. Like,
right.
The COVID vaccine made my dick big.
Exactly. Hit him with the hard dick stuff.
It's because they inject it directly into your dick, which makes it swell.
Vaccine apply directly to the dick.
Yeah,
that's right. If they could do that, they'd make it be easier to get vaccinated.
Two things, Joe. Number one, the sequel to this book needs to be like, we still kind of live at night, but it's nothing but like photos of Atlas restaurant properties and the people that go there.
It's Have a Nice Day Cafe.
Oh God, I wish.
Have a Nice Day Cafe is in the book.
Lava Lounge. Do you get Lava Lounge in there? I saw Chart House.
I never. Okay, so there was a time I was in Prague for about 4 years, almost 5 years, and so there was a time when I wasn't on the scene, right? So like Lava Lounge, I moved back and then it burned down, right?
Yes.
Didn't they have a fire there?
Yeah.
So like we got like around 2000, 2001, I think, when they had that fire. So I miss like Lava Lounge. There's some places I just wasn't here for that I missed, but I did like we moved to Federal Hill and I did pick up. There's a lot that's not in the book. Like I would walk around Federal Hill at like 2 a.m. and like window shots. Actually, one shot that I'm pretty proud of is so Row House Bar and Grill.
Oh yeah, it used to be an unnamed bar with just a pool table in the front.
Right, but it used to be a diner.
Oh,
before that.
I didn't know that.
Like around 2001, 2002, it was a diner, and the picture of the guy that looks all like exhausted, I shot through the little window of the diner with like the ceiling falling down and stuff. That used to be Row House. That used to be Row House Grill.
Yeah.
So there is some like I only missed a few years, but I picked back up around 2002, and then all the way through up until now. So
I was gonna say that place is. Everyone's cutting out. Sorry. That place is like a textbook example of why I moved to the city, and then slowly watched it all just kind of flip into like yuppie shit. Fort Charles Pub being one of them. Now it's like an Irish-themed wing place. I don't know. It's all just kind of like me being sad about old things.
Which place is that?
It's now called Delia Foley's.
Oh, okay. All right, I know what that is. Yeah. Okay.
But the last thing, Joe, I want to discuss with you, and Casey, this should be near and dear to your heart because you now live there. Is the Dundalk Heritage Fair going to happen?
Probably not.
Damn it!
I mean, that's the thing. They're not going to have these mass gatherings. And I mean, quite frankly, the Heritage Fair needed to take a break. It needed to take a break. Like,
well, it did last year.
Well, it did. I know, but they need to regroup.
Well, they're all going to be in jail because they were all at the Capitol.
You're right on. Yeah, the guy. I bet you the guy that sold. There's a guy who sold those Ted Nugent "I Keep an Eye Bare, Miss Me Yet" Bush shirts. Like, I bet he was down there, right? Like, he was down there. But no, like. But
what about like Black Eyed Susan Day? Oh, I'm just missing all my fun things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? I don't know how you're going to get people into Pimlico. I mean, how are you going to have the infield fest? I mean, it's not going to happen this year. I guarantee it's going to be canceled this year.
Oh, no way.
So that's 2 years in a row it's going to be canceled. Probably. I'm not speaking for the authority, but like I bet it is. But the Heritage Fair, I mean, that's going to be Olszewski Jr.'s call, and I guarantee you they're not going to have it this year. And the last year I went was all like cover bands,
right?
They were good cover bands, and I told them they should have marketed it as like Dundalk Cover Fest because it was like all cover bands.
But, and the guy from the Ravens.
What's that?
And
Oh
the guy
yeah,
from the Ravens.
and Rob Fahey from the Ravens.
And Sha-na-na.
He's on the radio.
Yeah, he used to play the horse, but like all the time. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be. I think our days of heritage fairing are done.
Because I mean,
And so
honestly, the only thing
end up being that drunk guy in the cowboy hat, right? Like
Yes.
it's like seven. Like, that'll be the next time we go when we're like
the other
like
guy that wears the headdress. But yeah, I mean, I was going to say like the beer karaoke garden is the crowning achievement of that entire festival. Which I honestly think that some of the photos that you've taken in past heritage fairs could be part of some sort of coffee table book.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely consider that. That would have to be That's super niche. That would have to be a self-published one.
Yeah, probably.
That's the
The one in New York's not going to care about Dundalk Heritage Fest, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Oh well.
All right. So tell us where we can find the book and order it and stuff and all the good things.
Okay, so it's on the Culture Crush website, which is, let me pull that up real quick. Culture Crush Editions. There is a second book on there. So it is www.theculturecrush.com/culture-crush-editions. I'll put the link in the chat. So
Yeah, and we'll put it in the show notes and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's an incredible there's another book that Culture Crush put out by Destiny Mata called The Way We Were, and it's a fantastic. It's all color. It's a fantastic look at like the underground scene, LGBTQA scene, punk scene, like the underground punk scene in the different boroughs of New York, and
Ooh,
it's
wow.
fantastic. It's bright, like the design is awesome. It's right next to mine on the site. So if you want to buy a set, that would be a great set. That would be
Cool.
Highly recommended, and we will certainly put that in our notes. Joe, thank you so much for being here.
I'm putting it. There you go. Put it in the chat.
Got it in the chat. Joe,
All right, no,
great to
thank
see you.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And the book's up for pre-order. So when does this come out?
Probably 2 days from now.
Okay, yeah. So it'll still be in pre-order. We're going to start shipping them hopefully end of February.
Cool.
So
Hope to see you soon in real life. We will have an outdoor
Okay.
beer somewhere safely.
I'm
that's it.
dying for it.
Well, we got Peabody Heights, man. We can sit outside. They got a huge beer garden.
Done.
Awesome.
All right, we will be right back with the rest of the show. Thank you so much again, Joe, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.